everybody, this is Dr. Joe Borio with Chiropassion Consulting, and we're doing a live webinar, and we're throwing a topic out there. We want to give you a lot of great information on how to have more fun in practice. And one of the reasons we do these webinars, we want to share some of the tools, what I call nuts and bolts, that I've learned in practice over the years that have allowed me to have a lot of success. And I don't mean that just financially. I mean that through serving people with chiropractic care, actually truly being a servant to people and allowing their body to work the way it was intended to. And that's really what's the most fun in practice. But how do you do that, and how do you do it with less stress and more fun? So that's one of the reasons we do it. The other reason that we do it, I want to introduce myself to you guys. There's a lot of people out there. There's 50, 60,000 chiropractors in the United States. And only a handful of people have actually ever heard about me or know me or have actually heard about Chiropassion Consulting. So I want to introduce myself, certainly, and what it is we do as a coaching or a consulting company for you and other practitioners so that they can have the best practice and the most success serving people with chiropractic. And thirdly, we have an event coming up in Chicago. So I want to talk a little bit about that. And for those of you that hang right into the end, I certainly want to share with you a real special offer that you can share with yourself, with other colleagues, and your staff to join us in Chicago this March 15th and 16th, just in a couple weeks, and really spend a couple of days with myself and other great chiropractors, other great leaders, and some great speakers on how to drive your practice, how to serve more people. So that's what we're doing. So let me talk a little bit about fun in practice. What does fun mean? And I kind of touched on that initially, but it means there's less stress. You know, when I opened my practice 23 years ago, I had a very stressful practice. I was in a place of fear. I was in a place of scarcity. I was in a place of concern, significant concern. I had huge student loans both from undergraduate and graduate school, and I had borrowed money to open up my practice. And I really didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know how to run the office. I didn't know how to hire people. I didn't know how to let people go. I didn't know how to train. I didn't have procedures. I didn't have protocols. And that's just the business stuff, and that's just the little stuff. I also didn't have really any concept of what I do as a chiropractor. What does a chiropractor do for people, and how do I express that value with confidence, with clarity, so that they understand that there's enormous value in their nervous system, and they understand that there's enormous value in what I do for their nervous system and for them and their family, so that they want to come. So that they're the ones that call and say, hey, look, I missed my adjustment today. I need to get in there, rather than us always chasing people down. You know, there's so many little neurons in my head that are firing off that you just want to share with docs so that they can have so much fun and so much reward and appreciation and recognition in practice, having the fun to serve other people. You know, those goosebumps you get when you walk somebody across the street, you know, an older person, and you do that good deed, if you will. You get addicted to that as a chiropractor, and you want to do that and shout and share that with the world. And we have an understanding, an appreciation for the body and its wondrous ability to heal, and how that's coordinated through the nervous system, and where the nervous system comes from, and how the nervous system regulates all those great functions in the body to allow us to be who we are every single day. It's incredible. And as we unfold or recreate ourselves every day as human beings, as living organisms, how critical the nervous system is, so that as we unfold, we actually evolve, if you will, from a health standpoint, to become just what we were meant to be, which are beautiful people that get along with other people, people that are healthy, people that want to share with other people, and certainly live to be ripe old ages and healthy in those older ages, functional in those older ages. So that is, you know, that is what we do, and that's what we're able to create as chiropractors. But how do you do that and have fun in practice? So how do we do that? Well, let's talk, as I touched on, fun means less stress. So when we remove stress, the first place to ask yourself in the set of how to have more fun, because I'm going to ask you some questions. What is it that you would deem as a no-stress office? You know, that's a great place to start. Where do you see your practice being that isn't stressful? Sometimes it's tough to identify all the stress because there's so many. Well, you know, people giving me a hard time, and collections, and insurance companies, and getting audited, and people wanting refunds, people missing their appointments, people not just getting it. You know, they just don't get it. I'm always having to go get new people. I'm having to bring new staff in. How do I market my practice, and how do I pay my bills, and all that stuff. So what is it that you see your dream practice? So most people, that the dream, and we hear that, it's kind of a catchphrase, but I don't mean it in a catchphrase way. What does dream practice mean? Well, I can tell you clearly, that means a successful office that runs with very little effort other than the effort of the joy in expressing and doing chiropractic care, serving people with chiropractic care. Almost everything else goes away except for that. That to me would be the dream practice. That to me makes perfect sense. So let's look at that for a minute. I can tell you one of the biggest stresses in practice is staff, and I can tell you one of the biggest stresses in practice is the financial aspect, collecting from people. So when we talk about that, one of the ways to set up a less or lower stress, more fun in practice, is to kind of eliminate the financial. So we do budgeted plans, and I certainly would encourage you to consider utilizing a budgeted plan. Now, there's a lot of different budgeted plans. There's some doctors that like to do a membership practice, and there's legalities on how to do that, but that's an awesome way to run your practice. In other words, somebody pays a fee, and for that fee, they get service of chiropractic care, typically on a weekly check to see if there's subluxation and correction and so forth over a period of time. And it's not even a contract for a year. It's just a payment that they make every month, or a prepay, if you will, for that membership, to be a member of your practice. That's great. There's nothing wrong with that. So that eliminates it. I have some docs that actually don't have staff. They have an iPhone or an iPad. They actually keep their records on the pad as they walk through. You can photograph your practice member. You can actually tap the note. You can actually put a credit card swiper right on the iPad. You can swipe it, and they can pay periodically on their memberships and so forth. I mean, that is just a beautiful office. It's an office I've set up for some docs. Great way to do it. That's one. Number two, you can do, if you will, a membership, but you're going to do a block of adjustments. Now, that's kind of what we do. We'll come up with a recommendation of care, typically for the first year or two of care, because what we'll find is that there's subluxation that has been there a long time. It's severe and significant, and it's going to need or warrant a lot of correction, a lot of adjusting in order to reduce, and sometimes you're able to fully correct the subluxation, improve the nervous system, try to clear as much interference from the body as possible. And then after a period of time, they're going to go kind of like a membership, if you will, not exactly in our office, but kind of like a membership where they're going to pay a fee for adjustments to be checked, I should say, and get adjusted when necessary throughout the course of their time in my practice. That's a great way to do it. Why that's great is because just like the membership practice, you're eliminating the financial stress of the practice. So everything's discussed up front. And that's what's beautiful. Another way, and the last way to do it, to really control financials, and it's the least effective of the three, it's the least effective, but it's a way, is to actually have somebody purchase some adjustment schedule ahead of time. So what they're going to do is they're going to buy so many adjustments, if you will, or office checks is probably a more accurate way to do it, because you may not always adjust them in all those areas or any areas when they come in. So you're going to sell maybe 40 or 50 or what, a block of checks, a block of adjustments over a period of time, and they get to utilize those. When those are up, then they're going to purchase, if you will, more service ahead of time. Those are the three ways to do it. Those are really the only three ways to do an office, if you will, and eliminate the financial challenge of that stress. They're also a great way, It's a great way to minimize staff. Now, I happen to have staff. We see a lot of people in our office, so staff to me allows me, if you will, and I certainly don't mean to minimize their need and their importance in our office, but it's a tool. A staff is a tool, like a computer, if you will. A staff member is going to allow you to do certain things, and it allows me to multiply myself in many ways to do certain things to offer great service to our practice members. But doing it this way minimizes the staff that you have. And that's great, because less staff means often, unfortunately, staff problems become your problems. And often if you have less staff, then you're going to have less problems. I also would tell you that it's always better to run leaner than it is to run with a lot of staff. I can tell you this: one staff member can get so much work done in a period of time. 2 staff members doesn't mean twice the work. 2 staff members, unfortunately, means maybe 1.5 times the work. 3 staff members means you're maybe getting 2 times the work done. So more staff doesn't double the efficiency, if you will. Many times, in almost all cases, it actually slows it down. That's frustrating, and for all of us. So the reality is we want to minimize staff, and we want to clearly have some form of financial that can be handled up front. Now, that being said, we need to educate people on the value of our service up front so that they're willing to utilize some type of a purchase for service many times before it's given. Okay? So that means we need some procedures or protocols in place ahead of time, or when they begin your relationship, when you begin your relationship with them, so that when they start care with you, you can explain to them what their nervous system is, what it is you do to keep the nervous system healthy, and then that makes sense to them. They see the understanding, they see the value for that, and then they're much more apt to want your service. They're much more apt to want to bring the children in. They're much more apt to want to recommend your service to other people, and that's how this works. So we need to set up a system for education. And now, one of the things I always tell clients, and certainly when I lecture, I share that with the crowd, and that is this: they never get it. I think the biggest mistake I made early in practice, and that I see chiropractors make day to day, is that no one in your office fully gets it all the time. In fact, they will be deluded of any value of what it is you're teaching them the moment they leave their office. It's almost like a car, depreciation of a car, right? It'll never be worth as much as it was the first day it buy. The moment it leaves the showroom, it starts to depreciate. And think of the value of your service and their understanding of not chiropractic always, about their nervous system. That starts to be diluted or diminish or devalue the moment they leave your practice. So that means when they come back for their next check and adjustment, when they come back in, they're much more diluted than they were when they left. That means that every single time you see them, you have to educate them. And that's a big part of that fun in practice. That means you have to have a system in place, not only to educate them initially when they come in, but you need to have a system in place that you can educate them every single time they're in. You know, I've heard it referred to as dip, that we need to be dipped. And I would step back and say that chiropractors need to be submerged. The moment you begin your journey as a chiropractor, you need to dive into a pool of the science, the philosophy, and the art of what it is we do. And you're going to hold your breath, and you're going to stay there underneath that water the rest of your life. However, what you're doing is you have the opportunity to dunk or baptize, if you will, and dip each practice member that comes in your practice each and every time. So then when they come out, they're like, wow, you know what? I totally understand why I need to be here. They're going to leave, and then they're going to come back, and you have to dip them again every single time. So that means you need to have a system, as I said, that each and every time they get dipped in the value of the nervous system, subluxation, and chiropractic. I think one of the big mistakes that we make, certainly have made, and this isn't speaking for everyone, but for a large part of the profession, we've put ourselves out as a health alternative. And that immediately puts us on the same shelf if you will, of every other thing that you can purchase when it comes to healthcare. So that, let me just take back pain. Everybody kind of can relate chiropractic to back pain, right? So here's back pain. I walk into health services, right? And I see, here's my shelf of back pain. Just think about like if I went to the pharmacy for allergies. I've got, Claritin and Allegra, and I got all these things to choose, right? And I got health alternatives. I got over here I might have homeopathic, healthy alternatives and so forth, and nasal wash sprays and natural anti-inflammatories and stuff like that, detoxes and all that stuff. So think of back pain. I've got massage therapy. I've got Advil, Motrin. I've got the family doctor. I've got the orthopedic doctor. I got the physical therapist doctor. I got the chiropractor. I've got acupuncture. I've got an inversion table. I've got spinal decompression, and I can go on. And I've got all these services on the shelf because we've put ourselves on there. Here's an alternative. Here's an alternative to Coca-Cola. That's Pepsi. And that's a mistake, and that's hurt us dramatically because people think, well, I can see a chiropractor for this, or I could see my family doctor for this. And that's a huge problem. That's an enormous limiting factor in the chiropractic profession. We are not a health alternative. We are not on that shelf. Because listen, no one on that shelf is qualified, educated, is a specialist in the identification and correction of a vertebral subluxation. No one puts their hands on another human being with the intention not only of releasing interference to the nervous system, but understanding that the nervous system is an expression of innate, allowing innate or the mental impulse to run down electrical wires and communicate to the body, giving it life and animation to tissue that it would otherwise be dead. And we also understand that innate intelligence comes from something far greater that is birthed by universal intelligence, the intelligence that gives matter its form, its shape, its properties, its principles, its criteria. That's what we have. Where the hell does that fit on that shelf? It doesn't fit on that shelf. It isn't anywhere near that shelf. It isn't on the shelf below it. It's not on the shelf above it. It's not on the shelf to the side. Hell, it's not even in that store. It shouldn't even be near that store. We are our own store, and that everybody has to go to this store. Not as an alternative, not as a choice, well, I'd like to go here versus here. No, if you're not going to this store, you're subluxated. And if you're subluxated, your body isn't working as well as it's supposed to. And if it's not working as well, that means the quality of everything you do and say, taste, smell, touch, and think is less than it could be. And if it's less than it could be, that means it changes everything in your life, doesn't it? If you can't hear as well, doesn't that change what you hear, and therefore what you think, and therefore what you do? And that's multiplied by an infinite number if you're subluxated. And that's just talking about the consciousness and thought process and potential, human potential of a human being. That's not talking about sciatica or back pain or neck aches, and that doesn't mean people shouldn't see a chiropractor for that, but they shouldn't only see a chiropractor for that. And if their ache or pain doesn't go away, that doesn't mean they shouldn't see a chiropractor. A chiropractor, in a sense, has nothing to do with the outcome of that form of treatment, because my outcome is whether or not the nervous system is healthier. And that comes down to clarity. You see, when you want to have fun in practice, one of the great ways to have fun, and why I love practice, and I still practice, one of the reasons I love it is because I have clarity. When I enter a room, I know exactly what it is my intention and my objective is. I'm not their orthopedic surgeon. I'm not their dentist. I'm not their abdominal surgeon, cardiothoracic surgeon. I'm not their psychiatrist. I'm their chiropractor. I know that they need this service because there's no way their nervous system will work as well. The hardware of the nervous system, or really the hardware of innate, won't work as well if it's subluxated. That's what I know. That's all I know. I don't know that if I release the subluxation or diminish the subluxation and minimize the interference, whether or not their backache will go away or when will it go away. I don't know. That's allopathic. That's a treatment model. And what's really important is I don't feel any less important or significant or less about myself or my own recognition, my own self-reflection isn't diminished even in the slightest way, because they don't either get better or they don't, I'm not able to help out a specific ache or pain or answer a question for them. I don't. Because listen, if I go to a dentist and the dentist says, I'm just concerned about my time here. So if I go to a dentist, the dentist says to me, hey, Joe, this is what's going on with your teeth back here. This is what's going on in your molars. This is what's going on in your incisor, and all that stuff. And I handle that very well. And I say, hey, Doc, listen, when you're done here, could you take a look at my knee for a minute? It's been giving me a lot of trouble. Like, nobody asks their dentist that, or most, the majority of people don't. Okay? And if you did, and the dentist said, I'm not going to be honest with you, Joe, I can appreciate it. I had the same problem myself, but I don't really know anything about the knee. I'm not an orthopedic, but I can refer you to one. I happen to have a couple that are members of my practice. They don't leave and go home that night and go, oh my God, you know what? I'm not a real doctor because I can't help them with their knee. That's not what they do, because they have perfect clarity, and they have such clarity that it's humorous to think that somebody would ask a dentist something that's well beyond what it is they focus on. Yet we have chiropractors that want to be, medical doctors, and we have chiropractors that want to prescribe drugs, and we have chiropractors that want to treat every ache, pain, or ailment and relate their service to an outcome-based symptom, meaning that their value or their effectiveness is solely based upon the outcome of the absence or presence of the symptomatology. That is guaranteed to cause stress in your practice. How the hell are you going to have fun if you absorb everybody's problem? Listen, the reality is this. Certainly I'm not saying that you don't have to have some clinical mindset there. I'm not saying that you need to be irresponsible and that you shouldn't evaluate somebody properly. I'm not saying that whatsoever. But what I am saying is, don't relate your care to anything but the nervous system and correcting or reducing the subluxation. And you start your relationship with somebody on that page. Listen, my job is very similar to a dentist. If you don't brush or floss and take care of these puppies, what happens? They rot. Your spine is a body part that needs to be cared for regularly, just like your teeth, throughout your lifetime, because it's under constant stress. And because it's under constant stress, if it's not cared for, the stress overtakes what the body can handle, what the nervous system can handle, and the spine will begin to subluxate. And once it subluxates, it presses on nerve, what happens? You start asking people, you start having conversations with people. You ask the average 4-year-old, 5-year-old what their brain and nerves do and what goes through the nerves. They'll tell you messages, signals, information. That's exactly right. The adult knows the same thing. And when you ask them those simple questions and you ask what happens to their body health, the health of the organ, if you press on those and those messages are diminished, they'll tell you. So they know. So the best place to start in your practice is, and to have a lot more fun in your practice, is to start talking to people about the nervous system, not chiropractic. You got a bunch of chiropractors going around, chiropractic. Well, hell, people don't know the value of a chiropractor because they don't understand their nervous system. You got to start with the nervous system first, then you make sense. But we look like idiots when we walk around and someone says, I got a headache. We should go to a chiropractor. My kidney's infected. You should go to a chiropractor. My knee hurts. Well, hell, you should go to a chiropractor. Chiropractor can help that. Chiropractor can help that. Chiropractor can help that. It's like, if people look at you and go, you guys, how's cracking your back going to affect anything? Because we're starting with the wrong discussion. You got to start with their nervous system first. And that's all you talk about. So I don't talk about, if you will, chiropractic. I talk about their nervous system, and then I relate what it is I'm doing to the health of their nervous system, and then is chiropractic. That's how you have more fun in practice. How do you have more fun? You got to cut down the staff. You got to run your office with a lot less overhead. You have to have a payment structure in place, and you got to be dipping people in the health and function of their nervous system on a regular basis for the rest of your life. I had some clients say, well, geez, that's what you have to do all the time. Yeah, that's what you got to do all the time. Welcome to practice. If you do that, then, and I'm almost out of time here, then, listen, screenings are great on the weekend. I have no problem with screenings. Outside talks, corporate talks, lecture, a lecture series, lunch and learn, dinner with a doc, you name it, I've done it or do it. They're awesome. They're great. But, you need balance in your life, too. You can't be working 7 days a week in your office and then expect, every weekend your staff and you are going to be running a car, you're redlining your car all the time. You get burnout, you get frustrated, people are dropping out. The better way to do it is be good at getting them, be great at keeping them. You got to understand by dipping them regularly, they're going to want to stay. And you got to get that overhead low. One of the things here in my last minute, I have a list, one of the forms we use as a client, and what we do is we list down all the expenses in your life. I don't just mean your electric and your utilities. I mean your stuff at home too. And I mean everything, a pool payment, a car payment. I don't care what it is. You write down that as an expense, and you write down in a column next to it, is it a need or is it a want? See, the biggest stress that happens to a lot of chiropractors, we start becoming successful, we start making more money. You make more money, what happens to the size of your life? Your life gets bigger, it gets more expensive. Then all of a sudden it's like, holy cow, I need to see this many people more in order just to keep up with it. And wow, you've got an enormous amount of stress in your life. And your practice isn't stable, and you've been running allopathic, and the insurance industry is covering less and less, and they're auditing and asking for money back, and all of a sudden practice isn't fun, and chiropractors say it sucks. One of the reasons, and I'm not trying to meet you up, but most chiropractors aren't practicing chiropractic. And that's when it starts to become stressful. So how do you have more fun? Start practicing chiropractic. As you guys can see, I could go on all day. There's a million other things. These are the things we talk about, certainly in our coaching program. These are the issues and concerns we address at our events, and that leads me to our event coming up. It's March 15th, 16th. It's in Chicago. Go right to my website at chiropassionconsulting.com, and on there you can click on the registration form. You can download it or fill it right out online, email it to us. It's $97 for your office. So let me repeat that. $97 gets you, if you have another doc in your office, they're included, and your entire staff get to go to the event for $97. Students, if you're a chiropractic student, you show me an ID, you come for nothing. No charge. Great way to give back to the students. I think the students need it more than anybody. And I will tell you this, why is it inexpensive? You need to have a coach. I may not be your guy, but you absolutely need to have a coach. So I will tell you, come check us out. See if you like what it is we do. See if you resonate with me. See if you like the ideal practice that I train docs to go after. And if that works with you, if you're like, wow, that's awesome, I love it, then by all means, for a simple $100, you got to taste, if you will, what we serve. Hey, I love it, doc, this is great, I want to be part of your program. You may not. You may come and say, wow, you know what? This guy just went over a million things I haven't even thought of. He doesn't resonate with me, but I got to resonate with somebody. And there are so many phenomenal coaches out there in our profession. I will say our profession's loaded with coaches, and I think that's good. I don't think that's a bad thing. So that means there should be a coach or a program out there that will suit just about any chiropractor. The only way you will ever aspire to be as good as you can be and serve as many people as you should with chiropractic care, because that's your responsibility now that you've earned that degree and you have the privilege now to serve people with chiropractic. The only way is to train with somebody that brings out the absolute best in you. Guys, it's been an hour to spend, an honor. I'm so excited. It's been an honor to spend this half hour with you. I greatly appreciate it. Certainly take the advantage. Check out our site. Love to see you in Chicago. It's been an honor. May your innate always flow from above down. Love you for loving what I love, guys. Have a great week.